Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, welcome back. I'm Melinda and I have the honor and the pleasure to moderate this panel on making transport safer. And we have a fantastic selection of panelists to talk about the subject. Just a few introductory words before we get started. You may need your headphones. We will be hearing from Mr. Levitin in Russian. So make sure, please, that you do have a headset if you are going to need it. And I believe for English, it's channel 11. Not sure about other languages, but you probably all know that better than I do by now. The statistics, of course, speak for themselves. Road traffic has become the leading killer of young people worldwide. Collisions cost more than $520 billion every year in health, property, premature death, and lost income. And in many low and middle income countries, the toll from road accidents adds up to 3% of GDP. This month marked the launch of the UN Decade of Action on Road Safety. Many industrialized countries are now moving to what they call a safe systems approach that sees safety as a shared responsibility and targets a zero fatality goal. In this panel, we want to talk more about that approach. We want to try to identify what big safety improvements might be in the pipeline. We also want to ask whether governments are ready to commit the necessary resources in an area of shrinking budgets. And we want to look at best practices and ask how they can be made useful and affordable for low and middle income countries. We'll also take a look at other sectors, asking how industrialized countries can maintain their current good safety records in the rail, air, and maritime sectors, and also promote similar levels in other modes, and whether lessons learned in one mode are applicable in others. As I said, we have a fantastic, there come our channels, by the way, so if you need help finding the right channel, here you see it, 11 for English, 10 for French, 9 for Russian, and 8 for German. And I'm just going to briefly read off the names and titles of our panelists. You do also see them above our heads, and I will spare us long introductions so that we can get right to the meat of our matter. And we're also very much looking forward to hearing from all of you in the audience with your questions in about the last half hour of our discussion. So starting from the left hand, we have Catharina Elmsäter Svärd. I hope I said that more or less correctly. She is the Minister for Infrastructure of Sweden. Then we have Karim Ghellab. He is the Minister of Equipment and Transport of Morocco. We have Catherine King, who is Parliamentary Secretary for Infrastructure and Transport from Australia. Igor Levitin is the Minister of Transport from the Russian Federation. Thierry Mariani is the Secretary of State for Transport of France. José Irigoyen is the Director of Transport for the World Bank, and Etienne Krug is the Director of the Department for Violence and Injury Prevention and Disability at the World Health Organization. Welcome to all of you. We're very pleased that you can be on this podium today. Mrs. Svärd, Sweden has adopted Vision Safe Systems and Vision Zero as with a target of 0 fatalities. Actually, you were already doing pretty well. You have 2.8 fatalities per 100,000 residents in Sweden. Can you really hope to get it down any further with the Vision Zero approach?
Is it on?
Should be.
Maybe so. Yes, here it goes. If you're just looking at figures, you might start to think that Vision Zero sounds a bit crazy. But when we adopted this vision in '97 in Sweden, it was more to be sure of that this is something to be really top on mind, because it has to start with your mind, and all stakeholders must have the same way of thinking. No one should get killed by cars, or no one should get badly injured as well. And that means that we have all the stakeholders, no matter if you are a politician, if you are making cars, if you are planning the city, if you are planning or building or construct infrastructure. With this kind of mindset, we have noticed, and our experience is that there is a way to go. And I would like to give you a short example, because sometimes we think that we can think because we are humans. But suddenly we don't think anymore. And then we have technique coming up to help us become better drivers when we, for example, are drinking coffee or whatever we do when we are driving. But still, if we don't have the right mindset, it doesn't work. Because we all know that belts will save lots of life. Therefore, almost every car producers are having belts in new cars. And if we don't put the belt on, the technique will remind us with this beep beep sound. And then we know, okay, I have to put my belt on. But if you don't have the right mind, do you know what people do? They take the belt behind the seat and make the sound stop. They don't have the right mind on top.
So I'm hearing you tell us that improving safety is about both behavioral methods and also about new technologies. Australia is going down the road of new technologies. Many of us have just been at this e-safety demonstration this afternoon and seen some rather impressive crashes. What exactly are you now mandating in Australia in the way of e-safety, and why?
Well, certainly in terms of electronic stability control, that will be mandatory in Australia in November. And we see it as one of a suite of measures that we can adopt to get our road toll down. We've had similar experience to other developing countries where 1970 was our worst year ever for road fatalities, and then we spent a large period of time over the course of the last 20 years with compulsory seatbelt wearing, speed cameras, with drink driving legislation, a whole range of behaviour change education programs. But the road toll really over the last 10 years has plateaued, and it's plateaued at around about 1,400 people, and for our population that's quite large, but with 32,000 people becoming injured as well. So we are working, again, we've adopted the Safe Systems approach. Our new National Road Safety Strategy was just actually agreed last week. We've just launched that. And we believe that mandating certainly global regulations is one of the ways that we can certainly work towards getting our road toll down. But we do think it's important that regulations are international. It certainly makes us easier if we develop them all together, but also if we adopt them all together, it certainly makes it much easier domestically.
In terms of the safe system approach, as I understand it, it's about shared responsibility, and it's often said that we no longer are going to blame one party. What exactly does that mean? Can you elaborate a bit on that for us?
Well, I think it comes, and our WHO colleague might be able to talk a bit more about this, but I think it comes from taking a really strong public health injury prevention perspective to road safety. It actually says that there are a range of interventions you can take, and that it is not just one level of intervention that will actually change what's happening with road safety. We do know that if there are significant improvements in the structure of our roads, or if we retrofit some of our roads with safety measures, we can get road fatalities down. We do know safer vehicles. I mean, the development has just been extraordinary in terms of the sorts of things that we've seen in our vehicles. But we do know that it still requires people who are driving cars to drive responsibly and to stick with speed limits, to not use their mobile phones in their hands, to not drink and drive, and to not take drugs. We certainly know that it's not rocket science, but trying to get all of those things together is actually quite difficult. And I think the Safe Systems approach has certainly provided us with a really good way of actually looking at the levels of intervention we can take on road safety.
Mrs. King just mentioned the WHO, so let's just leap right over to Etienne Krug. The UN has launched its decade of action on road safety. What's the goal here? Is this mostly a public education endeavor, and how would you speak to the point that I just discussed with Mrs. King?
It's much more than a public education endeavor. It's really a decade to implement the Safe Systems approach that has been just described, as well as elements of Vision Zero. Together with our colleagues from the UN Regional Commissions, from actually representatives from all of the panel here and many others, we developed a plan for this decade. So this is not just a UN decade with a flag and that's it. It's a decade with a clear plan and an objective of saving 5 million lives over the next 10 years.